The war in Ukraine has scarred its natural environment. A comprehensive assessment of the scale of the damage is underway, but reports thus far paint a worrying picture. Clouds of carbon have been spewed into the atmosphere by weapons used in the war. One expert says emissions in the first year alone were a staggering 155 million metric tons. That's equivalent to the Netherlands' annual footprint. Rebuilding a war-torn Ukraine is also expected to be carbon intensive, generating nearly 50 million tons of emissions. The explosions and fires by some 8,000 Russian missiles, along with millions of gallons of oil from incinerated tanks, have contaminated 1/3 of Ukrainian soil. Experts say this could cause long-lasting damage to agricultural productivity, as Ukraine is a major cereal and oilseed producer and exporter. Forests and national parks spanning nearly 2.5 million hectares have been damaged. Some 160 nature reserves are at risk, and nearly 1,500 plant and animal species face the threat of extinction. Water sources have also been contaminated due to attacks on industrial facilities. The recent explosion at the Kakhovka Dam in the south is one of the biggest ecological disasters Europe has seen in decades. Surging waters killed animals, destroyed habitats, and led to contamination. Ukraine called it an ecocide, prosecutable at the International Criminal Court. Since the beginning of the war, authorities estimate the country has incurred more than $50 billion in environmental damage, with air pollution emerging as a significant component. They're now pinning their hopes on a legal case being built against Russia and securing financial support to rebuild and restore its scarred landscapes and ecosystems. Earlier, I spoke with Oleksii Marushchak, a conservation biologist of the Ukrainian Nature Conservation Group, who shared with me his take on the extent and impact the war has had on the environment and ecosystems in his country.
If we call about direct impact, it is physical destruction of wildlife, physical destruction of natural habitats, buildings, digging trenches, pollution with different chemicals from projectiles, from bombs, from different shellings. I mean, polluting the soil, plants, then the fauna. Also, I have to mention some direct impact as ruining of big building of national importance, like Kakhovka Dam recently, which changed a really big part of the Dnieper River Valley. It also affected the natural populations, for example, of newts, because we know that almost entire population of rare Danubian newt was just wiped out to the salt water, to the Black Sea, and I'm afraid that major part of it just died.
Considering the long-term consequences of the war and the environment, how do you anticipate these impacts affecting human health and livelihoods?
Well, since the war made it impossible to operate on 30% or 35% of agricultural lands, even now on the territories of Kiev, Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv regions, people who try to work on their fields, at least once a week, I see the news where the people were injured by a bomb, injured by a projectile that didn't explode for some reasons, and this makes everything very complicated. It is expected to spend up to 150 years for entire demining of Ukrainian territory. We are the most mined area in the world right now. Even comparing to the Second World War, Balkan conflicts, we are the most mined.
Oleksii, the concept of ecocide has gained attention in international discussions. Could you elaborate on how this term is being used in relation to the Ukraine war, and what sort of mechanisms are being considered to hold responsible in the parties like Russia accountable for environmental destruction?
Ecocide, this is quite suitable word to describe everything that I mentioned before. Explosion on Kakhovka Dam and wiping out the territories that were along the Dnieper River. This is the ecocide. If we are talking about all the animals that died, that failed to, for example, breed, during breeding season, that no more have safe migration routes, etc. This is all ecocide. And what we are doing now, everything what we can do now, like in other spheres, we are collecting the evidences of these war crimes against nature.
In the context of post-war recovery, how long do you think it's going to take to recover, and how can international cooperation and support help Ukraine's capacity to rebuild its environment?
I think that I will not live that long to see the end of this story. I think about 200 years or something like that, because it might take some time for the animals to recover, to rebuild their population, to breed, and so on. But creation, so our central idea is creation of international areas of nature conservation on these territories. And this will give animals and plants and natural habitats ability to recover without a big role of human. And on the other side, it will compensate that territories that will be used as new agricultural lands. And what the international community can do for us is support our scientists and environmentalists, and giving us ability to use the most modern technologies of assessing the biodiversity state, technologies of monitoring, and so on.
We have more coverage on the war in Ukraine on our website, and also on how experts believe the prolonged conflict is deepening the global climate crisis. Head to cna.asia.